Please, help. My Lily's dying. Little girl had called the police. She'd called the wrong emergency number because her doll was poorly. Minutes later, a billionaire showed up with an ambulance. Mr. 999, please help, my Lily's dying. Lucas Grayson was halfway through dinner when his phone rang. He had just sliced into a seared filet mignon, alone at the end of a taille, long glass table in his minimalist mansion, nestled in the California hills. The music playing softly in the background was Vivaldi. The lights were dimmed to a calculated warmth. The room was perfect and empty. He didn't recognize the number. For a moment, he considered letting it go to voicemail. Then he heard it. Please, help, my Lily is dying. She's not breathing and Mummy's crying, too. Lucas blinked, stunned. The voice on the line was that of a little girl, no older than 4 or 5. It was high-pitched, frantic, and desperate. He straightened in his chair. Sweetheart, are you all right? Lily is really, really poorly. Please, come and help. Lucas's heart jumped. The child sounded terrified. This wasn't the kind of scared that came from a prank call or a game. This was real panic. He stood up so fast his wine glass tipped and shattered against the floor. The red liquid bled into the marble, like ink spreading across a page. Can you tell me where you are? He asked, already moving to grab his keys from the console near the door. A little voice gave an address. She repeated it twice. I am coming, he said. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. Years ago, Lucas had failed to act in time. His younger sister Emily had died during a medical emergency while he was across the country. The guilt hadn't faded. In fact, it had hollowed him out and left a space so empty that sometimes even music couldn't fill. Tonight, that space filled with urgency. He tore down the driveway, his headlights slicing through the dark. As he turned off the motorway, he called a private emergency contact from his team, just in case, and sent the address for backup. 15 minutes later, he pulled into a quiet suburban cul-de-sac. Modest houses lined the street. Lights were still on in a few windows. A single porch light flickered ahead. He parked hastily and approached the house. Before he could even knock, the door opened. Standing there was a woman of about 30, with tousled blonde hair, soft blue sweatshirt, and wide, cautious eyes. She looked half surprised, half horrified. "Can I help you?" she asked. Before Lucas could answer, a small child darted out from between her legs. She wore unicorn pajamas and clutched a ragged doll in her arms, its fabric arm dangling by a few threads. "She's better now, mister," the little girl chirped, brightly. "I gave her the blanket, and she feels better." Luca blinked. The child beamed at him, completely unaware of the panic she had caused. The woman, realizing what must have happened, covered her mouth with her hand. "Oh my God, did she call you?" she whispered. "I am so sorry." She must have somehow hit a recent call. "She gets into my phone sometimes." Lucas exhaled a slow breath. The tension in his shoulders softened. The doll was Lily. He looked down at the child again. "You must be Luna." She nodded, seriously. "And this," he said, kneeling down, "is the bravest patient I've ever seen." Luna grinned. Emma, still standing awkwardly by the door, sighed. I can't believe this. I don't even know how to begin apologizing." "No need, Lucas," said, rising. "You didn't waste my time." Something in his tone made Emma pause. She studied him again. A sharp suit, handsome, but with kind eyes. She didn't recognize him as a billionaire. To her, he was just a stranger who'd shown up when her daughter called for help. Lucas looked around the tiny living room behind her. It was modest but warm. A pile of books sat on the coffee table. A framed photo of a man, her late husband, perhaps, stood on the mantelpiece. He cleared his throat and offered a small smile. "May I?" Emma stepped aside. Inside, Luna gave a proud tour of Lily's hospital bed, a pile of folded towels on the sofa. Lucas played along, asking serious questions about Lily's symptoms and even offered a plaster from his wallet. Luna accepted it solemnly. When it was time to leave, he bent down to Luna's level. "If Lily ever feels poorly again," he said, "you can call me, but maybe tell Mummy first, okay?" Luna nodded. "You're nice. I like you." Emma, watching the exchange, felt her heart tug in a way it hadn't for years. Lucas turned to her. "I'll leave my number just in case." And for the first time in a long while, as he walked back to his car, Grayson smiled. Emma stood by the door longer than necessary, still trying to process what had just happened. The man, the stranger with the gentle voice and polished shoes, now sat cross-legged on the living room floor. He was on the same rug Luna had spilled apple juice on that morning, holding a doll with one arm half detached. Luna was explaining something about Lily's hospital stay in grave detail, her small finger pointing at a stack of books she had declared was the X-ray machine. The man nodded solemnly, like a real doctor taking notes from a 4-year-old nurse. Emma watched from the kitchen, arms crossed over her chest. The man had introduced himself only as Lucas, just Lucas. He didn't look like a social worker or a police officer or anything official. He was too well dressed, too calm, but he also didn't seem like a threat. Still, every instinct in Emma was on edge. Strangers did not just show up like this. He looked up and caught her, watching. "She's got quite the imagination," he said softly. Emma forced a smile and walked over. "She doesn't usually call strangers. I'm still trying to understand how she even reached you." "I'm glad she did," he said. Emma sat on the edge of the sofa, not quite relaxing. "Do you work in emergency services?" He shook his head. "No, I just picked up the phone." She narrowed her eyes slightly. "Why did you come?" He hesitated. "Because a child was scared." That was enough. There was something in his voice that made her believe him. Luna picked up Lily and placed her in Lucas's lap. "She needs a checkup," she announced. He nodded, humoring her. "Of course." "Let me see." Emma watched, surprised at how easily he slipped into the moment. Most men she knew, even the kind ones, froze up around children. Lucas didn't. He listened. He followed her daughter's lead, like it was the most natural thing in the world. For the first time in months, Emma's heart ached in a different way. Not from grief, but from something warm. He glanced up at the wall. The picture frame hung slightly crooked, but the image inside was perfect. Liam, her late husband, smiling at the camera, his arms around a much younger, brighter Emma. Luna had been only a baby then. Lucas followed her gaze. His smile faltered. "You knew him?" Emma asked quietly. Lucas nodded slowly. "Liam Marks, he worked for Grayson Technologies. Software engineer, right?" Emma's breath caught. "You worked there, too?" "I founded it," Lucas said, gently. Emma froze. "You're that Lucas?" He smiled faintly. Guilty. She felt a strange wave wash over her, part disbelief, part shame for judging him earlier. Lucas turned back to Luna. "Your daddy was very smart," he said to her. Luna nodded. "Mummy says he's watching us from the moon." Lucas blinked hard. "I think he'd be proud of both of you." The room fell into a soft silence. Emma swallowed, her throat tight. "I'm sorry," she said. "This must seem absurd. You driving all the way out here for a doll?" Lucas shook his head. "No, it doesn't." He stood slowly, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeves. "Thank you for letting me stay." Emma walked him to the door. "Thank you for not thinking we were crazy." He laughed gently. "Honestly, it's the most human moment I've had in a long time." Pulled a sleek business card from his coat pocket, scribbling a number on the back with an elegant fountain pen, in case Lily gets poorly again, or if either of you just needs to talk. Emma hesitated, then took it, their fingers brushing briefly. Something flickered between them. Too quiet to name, too soft to explain. "Good night, Luna," Lucas called. "Bye, my doctor," Luna waved. Lucas turned to Emma. "Take care." Then he was gone. Emma stood in the doorway a long time after he drove away, clutching the card in her hand, trying to ignore the tiny, impossible hope blooming somewhere deep inside her chest. The call came 2 days later, not from Emma, but from Luna. Lucas had just finished a board meeting and was reading emails when his personal phone buzzed. He almost let it go to voicemail until he saw the name on the screen. Luna Marks via Mum's phone. He answered, curious. "Hello? Hi, Mr. Lucas," Luna said, her voice small but serious. "Lily is better now. She's having a tea party today. You can come if you want. Mummy says you're busy, but Lily said you're invited." Lucas blinked, caught off guard. "A tea party? Yes," Luna said, confidently, "for her recovery. There are cupcakes and carrots for the bunnies." Lucas stifled a laugh. "Well, if Lily invited me, it would be rude to refuse." That afternoon, Emma opened the door, wearing a soft blue jumper and the same wary expression she always wore when he was around. "You really didn't have to come," she said quickly. "I was invited," he replied with a smile, "by a very important doll." Emma rolled her eyes but stepped aside. She's been planning it all morning. The living room had been transformed. A small pink tablecloth covered the coffee table. Mismatched teacups were set out, and Lily the doll sat upright on a cushion throne, complete with a paper crown taped to her head. Luna had even drawn a sign, Lily's Tea Party. P.S. Bring your own cupcake. Lucas bent down. I didn't bring a cupcake. Will tea do? Luna handed him a plastic cup filled with apple juice. It's fine. Lily's on a liquid diet, he grinned. Of course. They sat on the floor, Lucas cross-legged, between Luna and Lily. Emma sat a little farther back on the sofa, watching with her arms loosely crossed, trying not to smile. Luna led a song. Get well soon, Lily, she sang in a shaky tune. And Lucas, without hesitation, joined in off-key but sincere. Emma's smile slipped free before she could stop it. For the next half hour, Lucas poured tea, pretended to examine Lily's vitals, and helped Luna tape a plaster over the doll's fabric wrist. They laughed. They clinked cups. They clapped when Luna declared Lily officially better. It wasn't until the very end that Lucas reached into a sleek black box he had brought with him. I brought something, he said. Luna gasped when he pulled out a miniature toy hospital, complete with a doll-sized ambulance, a tiny doctor's office, and a nursery with cots for doll patients. It looked custom-made for Lily, he said, simply. So next time she gets poorly, she'll have somewhere to go. Luna didn't speak. She just launched forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. Now, Lily will never be poorly. Alone again, she whispered. Lucas held her carefully, something catching in his throat. For a moment, just a moment, he forgot the boardroom, the private jet, the empty penthouse. All he felt was the weight of a little girl's arms and the warmth of belonging. Emma watched them, unmoving. The image, her daughter, in the arms of a man who looked more at ease on the floor at a tea party than in a corner office, etched itself deep inside her. She hadn't seen Luna this happy in a long time, and she hadn't felt this seen. Lucas looked up and caught Emma's eyes. His expression softened. You, too, are something special, he said. Emma tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, suddenly unsure how to respond. She's all I've got, Lucas nodded, and somehow she's everything. As he stood to leave, Luna tugged on his sleeve. Can you come again tomorrow? He smiled. We'll see. I don't want to wear out my welcome. Emma walked him to the door. This time she didn't try to rush him out. Thank you, she said, quietly. Not just for the toy, but for seeing her. Lucas's voice was soft. I see both of you. The door closed behind him, but the warmth he left lingered. For the first time in a long time, Emma didn't feel like she was doing it all alone. And Lucas, walking back to his car, with a pink teacup still in his hand, didn't feel quite so lonely, either. It was late. The tea party had ended hours ago. Luna was asleep upstairs, and the house was quiet, except for the ticking of an old clock in the hallway. Emma stood by the sink rinsing teacups when she noticed Lucas was still sitting in the living room, gently rotating the little doll hospital in his hands. She hesitated, then brought him a cup of chamomile tea. He looked up, surprised, and took it with a soft thanks. I usually Don't let people stay this long, Emma said, settling across from him. Then I'm honored, Lucas replied, his tone half joking, half serious. They sat for a while, not speaking. The silence was not awkward. It was cautious, like two people learning to trust their own breathing again. Emma looked down at her tea, her fingers tracing the rim. I still remember the sound of the phone that night, she said softly. 3 years ago. It was around 6:40 p.m. I was feeding Luna mashed peas. I thought it was Liam saying he was running late. Lucas turned slightly towards her, but it wasn't. She shook her head. It was the hospital. There'd been a crash. They didn't say much over the phone, just that I had to come in immediately. Her voice faltered. By the time I got there, they'd already moved his body. Lucas was quiet, listening. Luna kept asking, "Where's Daddy?" over and over. I told her he was in the stars, that he had to go and help light up the night. She didn't understand, but she stopped asking. Emma paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. But that night, she didn't sleep. She didn't sleep for 3 days. She just sat at the window with her bunnies, waiting for the stars. Lucas's jaw clenched slightly, and he looked down at his hands. My sister died in an emergency room. Emma blinked. She was 22. Came down with a sudden fever and shortness of breath. They didn't see her fast enough because she didn't have insurance. By the time someone checked, it was too late. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. He nodded slowly. I was in a board meeting halfway across the world. I didn't even know she was ill. When I got the call, he stopped. It broke something in me. Emma reached out instinctively, but stopped just before touching his hand. Lucas looked up. That's why I left. My old company. Why I started 24/7 Hearts. Emma's eyes widened. That's you, the foundation that funds urgent care for children. He nodded. It started small, just a reaction to grief. Now, it keeps me going. They sat in silence again, each caught in a quiet current of memories, loss, and what came after. Then Emma stood, walked over to a drawer, and returned with something folded in her hands. A small, soft cloth, blue flannel, slightly worn but carefully kept. When Luna was born, she said, handing it to him, Liam had this in his jacket. He used it to clean her face when she sneezed for the first time. I found it in his coat pocket after he passed. Lucas took the cloth gently. You've kept it all this time? Emma nodded. It still smells a little like him. Sometimes, when Luna's poorly, I let her hold it. Lucas pressed it to his face, closed his eyes for a moment, then held it in his lap, almost reverently. Thank you, he said, his voice low. For sharing him. For sharing this. Emma smiled. A tired but honest smile. You shared your sister. It only felt fair that night. When Lucas finally left, he did so, with the cloth carefully folded in his coat pocket. And as Emma watched his car disappear down the street, she realized something both terrifying and beautiful. She was not afraid of remembering anymore. It started with a photograph. A grainy image taken from across the park, showing Lucas Grayson kneeling on a picnic blanket, holding a doll while a little girl beamed beside him. Emma was seated behind them, laughing. In the soft afternoon light, it looked intimate. The headline read, "Billionaire, Lucas Grayson, seen with single mum. Love in the suburbs? Within hours, it was all over social media. Talk shows speculated. Tabloids ran with it. A few even pulled old pictures of Liam's accident, stitching together a narrative that Emma was a grieving widow, finding comfort in a billionaire's arms. Emma found out through a coworker who hesitantly slid her phone across the bookstore counter. She read the headline once, twice. Her stomach turned. Later that evening, her inbox pinged with a message from a private account, typical gold digger. You planned this from the start, then another. Don't trap him with your sad story. And worse. Emma stared at the screen, the color draining from her face. She turned it off, threw the phone on the sofa, and sat at the kitchen table, staring into nothing. It wasn't just online. At the nursery drop-off the next day, one of the mothers, sharply, dressed all pearls and judgment, leaned in close and said sweetly, "So, are we calling just any man? Daddy, now are we?" Emma flinched. "Excuse me?" The woman smiled tightly, just asking. Children, at this age, they get confused easily. It would be irresponsible to let a child get attached to someone who might not stay. Emma said nothing. She couldn't. She went home, sat on the floor of the shower and cried, silently, until the water ran cold. By evening, she had made a decision. She wouldn't answer Lucas's text. She would cancel Luna's next playdate with him. She would fade back into the quiet life she had before. It was safer, cleaner. No one could hurt her there. That night, she didn't sleep. The next afternoon, there was a knock on the door. Lucas stood outside, hands in his coat pockets, his eyes soft. "I saw the article," he said simply. Emma nodded, her arms folded across her chest. "I saw the comments, too," he added. She looked away. "I get it," she murmured. "You don't need this." "I don't want to be. I didn't mean for any of it." "I'm not here to fix the press," Lucas interrupted gently, "or the people who think they know either of us." Emma's lips trembled. "You should go." Lucas stepped forward, still on the porch. "Emma," he said, quietly, "don't run because of them. Only run if I make you feel unsafe." He paused. "Do I?" Question hung in the air. She looked up at him, her eyes wide and red-rimmed. Her voice broke when she answered. "No." He took another step forward, his hands still lowered, unthreatening. "I won't push," he said. "But I need you to know something." His voice was low, firm, but tender. "They don't see you the way I do. They don't see how hard you work to make Luna smile. They don't hear her laugh when you read stories in silly voices. They weren't there when you held her hand after Liam. They weren't there when you put her first every second of every day." Emma's vision blurred. "I'm not afraid of the headlines," Lucas continued. "I'm only afraid of not seeing you again." That was it. Something inside her cracked, then opened. She stepped forward slowly and, without a word, placed her forehead against his chest. He didn't move at first, then gently brought his arms around her. She trembled in his embrace. Years of held-back sorrow surfacing all at once. She cried, not quietly this time, but fully, like rain against glass. And Lucas held her like someone who knew the weight of silence, who had carried his own. They stood like that in the doorway as the evening light faded. And for the first time in 3 years, Emma let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to lean. The call came at 2:47 p.m. Emma was behind the counter at the bookstore, checking inventory, when her phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the number. Luna's nursery. Her heart skipped. "Hello," she answered, already grabbing her coat. "Miss Bennett, we just wanted to inform you that Luna had a little accident during playtime. She tripped and hit her head on the edge of the slide. There's a minor scrape on her forehead, and she cried quite a bit, but she's stable." Emma's world went silent. "We tried calling your emergency contact." Mr. Grayson answered and said he was on his way. Emma's breath caught. "Lucas? Yes, he's with her. Now." He brought a small first aid kit. They're waiting in the front office. Emma dropped everything. She didn't remember locking the bookstore or the drive over. She only remembered running. When she arrived, she found Luna curled up in Lucas's arms in the quiet waiting area. He sat in the corner chair, cradling her gently, whispering something she could not hear. There was a plaster on Luna's forehead, and her doll, Lily, was tucked safely in her lap. Emma stopped in the doorway, heart pounding, her chest tight with something that felt far too much like déjà vu. She had been here before, not this room, but this moment. The panic, the helplessness, the memory of Liam's accident years ago, crashing back like a sudden wave. Lucas looked up and met her eyes. "She's okay," he said softly, "just scared." Luna looked over, then burst into tears. "Mommy!" Emma rushed forward, hugging her tight, kissing her hair. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." But as she held her daughter, her eyes went back to Lucas, and something inside her twisted. She should be grateful. He had shown up, been kind, steady, protective. But fear whispered cruelly. What if she let herself believe in him? What if Luna got attached? What if Emma herself fell deeper? What if she lost him too? Later, that night, after Luna was tucked in with a forehead kiss and a whispered promise that everything was fine, Emma sat on the front steps of her house, arms wrapped around her knees. She was so tired of being afraid, of living like love was a luxury she could no longer afford. The porch creaked, and she looked up. Lucas stood there holding 2 cups of tea. He handed one to her wordlessly and sat beside her. They didn't speak for a while. Crickets chirped in the distance. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Then Lucas said quietly, "You know, I was terrified too." Emma glanced at him. "The day I got that call about Luna," he continued, "I remembered the night I lost my sister. It was raining. The hospital put us on hold for what felt like forever." His jaw clenched. "But this time I could get there. I could hold her. I could help. And for once, it felt like something I did actually mattered." Emma looked away, blinking fast. "Oh, didn't know they put you as the emergency contact." "She did," he said with a soft smile. Apparently, she told her teacher, "Call Mr. Lucas. He knows how to fix sad." Emma laughed through the sting in her eyes. Then Lucas grew quiet again. "I know you're scared," he said, gently. "You've been through things. I can't pretend to understand. But Emma," he set his cup down, "you can close every door, lock every window. But I'll still be waiting on the porch until you decide if I'm worth opening one." Emma looked at him for a long time, and finally, in the dim porch light, she whispered, "I want to." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "I'm just so scared." Lucas reached out, not to pull, not to push, but just to place his hand lightly over hers. "Then I'll stay right here," he said, "for as long as you need." They sat in silence again, but this time it felt like healing. The envelope was folded in half, sealed with a rainbow sticker, and addressed in big, uneven crayon letters. "To Mr. Lucas from Luna and Lily." Emma found it tucked into her handbag one morning. She said she made it last night after. "You read her that story," Emma explained, her eyes soft. Lucas opened it slowly, carefully, as if it were made of glass. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The drawing was childlike and crooked. 2 stick figures holding hands, with a little girl and a doll between them. A bright sun smiled down over their heads. Scrawled in purple crayon at the bottom were the words, "You can be Lily's daddy too." Lucas did not say a word. He simply folded the letter, his throat tightening until he could barely breathe, and slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket, where it would stay, always. That Saturday, he picked them up in the morning and drove to the grassy hill behind Luna's nursery. The sky was impossibly blue. Birds chirped overhead. He laid out a simple, checkered blanket and unpacked sandwiches, juice boxes, and a small box wrapped in brown paper. Luna clapped with joy when she saw the picnic set up. "Lily loves picnics." Emma smiled, but something in her expression trembled like she already knew this day meant something more than apple juice and sandwiches. When they finished eating, Lucas reached for the little box and handed it to Luna. "This is for Lily," he said. "From me." Luna unwrapped it eagerly. Inside was her doll, Lily, but not exactly the same. The little arm that had once been torn off was now stitched back on, neatly with tiny flower-printed fabric. Around her neck was a new scarf, soft and pink. "She's better," Luna gasped, hugging the doll. "She's all better." Lucas turned to Emma, then handed her a second item. A slim, hand-bound notebook with a pale blue cover. The title was embossed in gold, "Our New Chapters." Emma opened the first page. Written in Lucas's elegant handwriting were the words, "This story has no ending, only beginnings. And I would like to write the next part with you, with Luna. With Lily, too." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Lucas continued, his voice low but steady. "This isn't a proposal. Not yet. But it is a promise that I'm here, that I'm choosing this. Choosing you every day that you'll let me." He looked down, then added with a slight smile, "And I make really good pancakes." Emma laughed through her tears. She reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. "We are," she said. Lucas blinked. You are, she nodded, squeezing his hand. We are ready. And I don't want another chapter. I want a whole new book with you. Luna jumped into their laps just then. And Lily, too. Can we draw in the book, too? Emma kissed her daughter's cheek. Yes, darling. We'll fill it together. Lucas wrapped his arms around them both, and for the first time in years, none of them felt like they were missing anything. Not anymore. 3 years later, the little bookshop on Maple Street smelled of fresh paper, warm scones, and lemon-scented wood polish. Sunlight poured in through the wide front windows, where a small, charming sign read, Little Chapters, Children's Books and Story, Nook. Behind the register, Emma arranged a new stack of picture, books with care, her blonde hair, tied in a soft bun, a happy, contented smile on her face. The shop buzzed with laughter. It was a Saturday morning story time. In the center of the room, on a brightly colored rug, sat the man who had answered a little girl's call. Lucas, no longer in a sharp suit, but a soft, worn-in jumper, held a storybook open, reading with silly voices that made the children around him erupt in giggles. Luna, now a confident 8-year-old, sat beside him, helping to turn the pages at just the right moment. On a nearby armchair, Emma's belly was round and full, carrying their second child, a little boy they'd already decided to name Liam. On the highest shelf, behind the counter, Lily sat propped up, her little arm perfectly stitched, a permanent guest of honor. As Lucas finished the story to a round of applause, he looked up and his eyes met Emma's across the room. No words were needed. The quiet, full-hearted understanding that passed between them was a language all its own. The emergency number had been wrong, but for 3 hearts that had been lost in their own lonely grief, it had been the most important call of their lives. It was the call that led them home. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of the unexpected ways love can find us, and warmed your soul, then you belong here. At Soul Stirring Stories, we bring you tales of true love, healing, journeys, and unforgettable moments that remind us what really matters: courage, compassion, and connection. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story that could change your day or even your life. Tell us in the comments what was a wrong call in your life that led to something unexpectedly beautiful. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay kind, stay hopeful, and keep believing in second chances.